Hello and welcome. This is the BCTV Candidates Corner, and I'm Mark Murai, your host for this edition. With me today is John Hopwood, who is running for Hillsborough County Commissioner. Hi, John. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hi, but my name on the ballot is John Claude Hopwood. So just want to remind people.
So for you voters out there, the name that you'll see on the ballot is John Claude Hopwood. So don't be confused with any other John Hopwoods. So let's just jump right into the questions here. And why don't you tell me, where did you grow up?
Well, I was just up at the county nursing home, which is in Goffstown, because I was one of the few people I know that it's actually born in Goffstown, New Hampshire, because I was talking to a couple of the nurses up there, and it used to be a hospital called Moore General, but it was actually a little further north, they told me. And in 1959, when I was born, that day, my mother's doctor, Dr. Channing Aludo, a very fine doctor, who was always associated with the Elliott, he was young in 1959. He's no longer with us, and neither my mother. And I was making my debut, and he was on at that hospital that day. So unlike all my other siblings and my father, I was born not in the Elliott Hospital, but in Moore General Hospital in Goffstown.
Yeah.
So there's a funny little story about that, because in those days the births were registered in Manchester. So in 1985, when I went down to the MEP station, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station in Manchester, to join the Army, they told me, because my birth certificate said Manchester, the seal, even though Goffstown, I was born in Manchester from then on. That's the Army. Later on, when I came back and had to get a birth certificate, Manchester told me, oh, it's back in Goffstown. So now I went back, born in Goffstown. And the only other person I know that was born in Goffstown was Bob Backus, the state rep.
Oh, right.
And,
You're a Goffstown native. So
well, born there, but I grew up right next to one block from St. Anselm's College.
okay.
So that's near the Penardville neighborhood of Goffstown. So this is where I grew up and spent the first 18 years of my life.
So tell us a little bit about your family growing up. I know you mentioned your mom and your dad. You have siblings.
Oh yeah, I have 3 sisters and a brother. My sisters live here in New Hampshire. My brother was a lifer in the Air Force, and he lives in England now. Although he votes in the United States.
And you're a veteran yourself, correct?
Yes, I have spent 4 years and 2 months, 50 months in the U.S. Army,
Well,
and I'll say
thank you for
50
your
months.
service.
Each one of those months is like a year in a way. But
Thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
thank you.
Did you go to school after high school?
Oh yeah, yeah. I when I well, it's funny. I went to the same school as my grandmother and father went, Varney School, which is now a nursing home, and then I went to West High School. And my grandmother was born in 1904. If you went to the 8th grade, that was something. That generation was the 8th grade. My father went to West High School, as I did, but he quit when he was 17 years old to go to World War II. And I'm West High, 1977. I took a year off because I needed to make some money. And then I went to Boston University, where I studied political science. And my advisor, mentor, and friend, and a lifelong friend, was Howard Zinn, the famous historian that recently was denounced by our president. Well, I'll fess up that he's my president too. And that was a great experience being down there with Howard, and had a great political science faculty, Boston University did.
Yeah, I imagine. Tell me, what do you do for employment? What do you do here in New Hampshire?
Well, I was gone for a long time. The woman I loved, I met in the Army, was a native of Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. That's
She went to
where I'm
Berkeley,
from.
Berkeley, UC Berkeley after the army, and so I moved to California. Cherchez la femme. I grew up in a French-speaking neighborhood, though it
Mhm.
didn't help me much when I was in Paris. And so from about 1989 to about 2003, 4, I lived most of my life in California, primarily in the Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then in the Steinbeck country,
So you
Monterey.
so you moved there right before the Loma Prieta earthquake.
No, I was there for Loma Prieta.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was out there for that. I live in California, born and raised in California, but yeah.
my we had tickets. My friend, we got scalp tickets for, was it $25, and it was for Game 5 because my
Yeah.
friend said obviously the A's can't sweep, and then it happened, and then we had bought the tickets for $75 and they were 25 face value. We took them back at $25, and then like a few weeks later found out they were worth like $200 on the market.
Yeah, I bet. That makes sense, right? The,
And one other
the
baseball,
World Series game that didn't happen.
yeah, one other baseball story. Mike and he was my roommate at the Defense Language Institute, which is in
Oh,
Monterey,
mhm.
California, and we were supposed to go see Nolan Ryan pitch because he
Mhm.
was from Texas.
Yeah.
He was coming to pitch, and I didn't hear from him that day. And then he calls me up, and he's got a sheepish voice. I just hear that Nolan Ryan threw his fifth no hitter. This is the guy that bought the tickets for the fifth game too.
That's great. I lived in Monterey too for a brief time. It's beautiful there.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me, do you have immediate family now? Do you have wife,
Right
children?
back to New Hampshire because Silicon Valley, we had the .com bubble burst,
Mhm.
and then we were free. There was still I was there. I lived 5 blocks from the beach in Carmel,
Oh yeah.
right? And then I got a job in New York City as an editor for Oxford University Press. But my 3 of my jobs got offshored to India, including publishing. Oxford University Press, the biggest publisher. And so I was down with the National Whistleblower Center in Washington, D.C. And I
Hmm.
was supposed to take a seat at the law school there. But my mother had the last stage of Alzheimer's, and see
Sorry.
what it's doing to my sisters. Because when you're not here and you come back, you can see what's happening. And they were under a lot of pressure.
Sure.
So I didn't think I'd be here 10 years. But on January 1st, 2010, I came back to Manchester. And I never did get to law school.
Okay.
But
Well,
I'm a disabled veteran, by the way, and I live on disability,
okay.
which this being our Veterans Benefit Administration is not very generous, but I
Mhm.
get by.
Yeah, we can do a lot more for our veterans, that's for sure. Tell me, what sorts of things have you done in the community that might make you a familiar face to voters?
Oh well, I guess I'm very well known in Manchester
Mhm.
because I have a public access TV show which is called Ward 13. There only being 12 wards in Manchester. I've appeared on. We have a public radio station too, and I'm a journalist. Although I have very bad carpal tunnel, so I'm not as active as I want to be. But I think the union leader the union leader doesn't particularly like me. If they write about the Valley Street jail, they'll quote the incumbent Tony Pappas, but they'll never quote me. Uh, I'm like a non-person to them. Uh, I wrote a petition asking the Manchester Board of Mayor and Aldermen to investigate Ted Gatz's cover-up of the West High rape, for which I was hit with what's called a strategic lawsuit against public participation, which is a very life-changing event, I might say. And once I was slapped, which that's only 25 states allow that, and I realized every state I'd lived in after New Hampshire didn't allow that. And yeah, so the union leader called me the notorious John Hopwood, which actually can be considered a libelous statement. But Gatsis basically sued me for libel and defamation. The suit was thrown out, but after the election
Hmm.
to shut me up. And the judge all but called him a liar. And for years, I've been trying to get information on the West High rape, but I can't get it. They won't surrender any of the information. Similarly, I've been investigating when I was being sued in 2017 by Gatsis. Sarah Lynch, the principal of the Webster Street School, was stabbed. Now, there was a great outcry in early 2017 when people found out that Gatsis had not informed the Board of Aldermen that there had been a rape at West High. That didn't come out for almost 2 years. And the new school superintendent of Manchester, Boyan Vargas, from Rochester School District, who ironically handled a high school rape about 5 days before the West High rape. And within a day after the arrest of the rapist, the school district sent out a letter informing the parents, because you have to, because girls might have been assaulted and they don't come forward. I found out, I won't want to talk about so much about the West High rape, but there's some very heartbreaking things about what happened. Incidentally, when I was in the Army, I handled a rape, and I've handled attempted murder and everything. I didn't become an officer. For some reason, I joined as an enlisted man and had quite a colorful career in military intelligence, both listening to Russians and handling some of my fellow soldiers. But in 2017, they put in supposedly a new policy for parental notification. And although there had been one before, that wasn't followed. And so Sarah Lynch was stabbed. And that was almost 2 years to the date of the West High rape. And we weren't informed of that. And, things I pursued. But after I got slapped, I kind of, you become, you must have seen High Noon with Gary Cooper, suddenly nobody there supporting you.
Well, since we're here to talk about your candidacy, why don't we switch gears a little bit? You're running for Hillsborough County Commissioner. Why don't you tell me why you've decided to run?
For the very same reason what I was talking about. I know you had in Bedford the similar incident with, Exeter that happened, and the people of Bedford reacted to that, just like in Concord. I was talking to Bill Brick. I was with Elizabeth talking to him, and he said he brought up the Concord High School rape and mentioned that not one of them ran for re-election. But in Manchester, there's like a omerta, a code of silence, which I find quite troubling. One of the reasons in 2016, I was going to I was going to run for Hillsborough County Commissioner, because the union leader had done the series about the conditions at the Valley Street Jail. Mm-hmm. And as a journalist, journalists know a lot that goes on. It doesn't mean you can print it. And I very much wanted to, but Tony Pappas is considered somebody that's untouchable. A famous, one of our local journalists is well known, said, well, you're going to run. It's going to be a blue wave year, and Sununu will get elected and Tony Pappas. Yet I did in my, the Democratic primary. I got twice as many votes as the last Democratic candidate. And I won 10 of the 12 wards, including her wards in Manchester. And, we weren't, I'm talking about 2 primaries, and I actually outpolled her. But that's not so much, I think, about me in the race, it's about Democrats, that Democrats never vote down ticket. I mean, I've been at recounts, and Democrats just don't vote down ticket. But yet, now that so many Democrats are voting by absentee ballot, they are. So I think that's going to help a lot of the people down ticket. I still have a very high mountain to climb, because a lot of people think Tony is a Democrat, because sometimes he said the Democratic nomination because people were too afraid to run against her. Mm-hmm. But what about the county commission? I think that what's going on in the jail is,
Well, tell me, why don't you explain a little bit to the viewers what the county commissioner is responsible for?
I'm going to take a sip of water.
Yeah, that's fine.
Unlike California or say Florida, counties in New England are very weak. I was very surprised how weak they are. Basically, it's not that they're not without power, though, a county commissioner. They, as you know, anybody with a property tax bill knows there's county taxes. The things that they are responsible for are the Hillsborough Department of Corrections, which that's the Valley Street Jail, the Sheriff's Department, and the Register of Deeds. They also are responsible for trusts. Like, say, if that somebody creates a trust, a land trust or something, because that's in the state laws that the county can have county recreation facilities. And if there are trusts, one of the commissioners will serve as a trustee, and there is the county convention. And most people I find don't know much about county government. The county convention is all the state reps from Hillsborough County, and then they elect a board of their own that have to deal with issues. What has to be funded, the Valley Street jail, the sheriff's office, and the nursing home. Just think about the nursing home. They had to have the retrofitting of it because of COVID. And so the commissioner is also responsible for the negotiation of labor contracts.
Okay.
And they have the power of letting contracts. And anybody that's been a journalist in, oh, geez, Boston. I know some journalists here that were back in Boston at the Old Herald. If you have the power to let a contract, you have great power indeed. One of the things I would like to see is we have one of the weakest whistleblower laws in the United States, and we rank in the bottom five.
Who does that refer? Who are you referring to when you say we?
Hillsborough, New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire is one of the weakest whistleblower laws. We have hardly any ethics laws. I mean, they're there, but they're never enforced. And whistleblower laws are important. They really are, because the SEC is acting, Trump's SEC is acting to try to rein them in right now. Because the whistleblowers go all the way back to like 1775 to identify waste, fraud, and abuse. And it was very important when the so-called Lincoln Law of 1863, which was to identify waste amongst the contractors of what was called then the War Department. Mm-hmm. When that was revived by Chuck Grassley, the Republican senator from Iowa, he revived it and he went after the Department of Defense. And I can tell you personally that those stories about like $100 bag of rags, that's true. It's ridiculous, but it's true. Now, the county commission are not legislatures. Mm-hmm. They could ask for, and neither is the county convention. They're legislators, but they're not. It's not a legislative body. But you could lobby for a whistleblower law. But more importantly, because of the power of contracts, we as the Hillsborough County put whistleblower provisions in contracts, and that would be and a clawback. So if fraud is identified, you could actually get the money back. You would have the legal means, the vehicle to bring it back. And of course, whistleblowing laws would have helped people like, once again, go back to Sarah Lynch, the Webster Street School principal. She was fired, and she said she had brought up, as a whistleblower, the conditions at the Webster Street School. And, there is a lot of stuff that goes on that people know about. I know because they come to me. Mm-hmm. Pretty well known in that respect. And, people go to journalists and talk to them, mm-hmm. but they're afraid because they'll lose their jobs. One of the most famous whistleblowers from the VA was Manchester, Jeff Cassell, who is the father of Manchester's tax cap, by the way. And so there is a lot to be done, because think about the property taxes. Nobody wants to pay more property taxes. And over 90% of the Hillsborough County monies, and it's $118 million budget. It's in your property tax budget. Most of that's from, it's mostly from property taxes. And that really limits what we can do. It's like Tony says she would like to do some stuff at the nursing home more. What can you do when you're constricted? But I'll just tell you one thing. You can just see that there's waste there. Like when we get to the Valley Street Jail, the provider of care there, which is cited in 2 recent lawsuits, one of our local journalists, we know, he tells me about the Valley Street Jail and says, John, Hillsborough County must be loved by tort lawyers. And the people there's a doctor and a PA, a physician's assistant. They started out up at the Stafford County Jail, providing, I think, 24 hours a week of care for $3,500 a week. And if I get this right, I might be a little wrong because I've been reading so much, but for 12 hours at the Valley Street Jail, they're paid $350,000. And in the suit of Nicholas Sacco, was a 24-year-old that went to Valley Street Jail in 2019 and said he was withdrawing from heroin. Well, what he was really withdrawing from was fentanyl. He bought heroin thinking it was fentanyl. For 5 days, he didn't get care and he died. And the lawyers talked about $350,000 for this care, and it's not provided. I mean, it looks like, in my opinion, something might be wrong there.
So it's safe to say that if you get elected, you plan on doing some house cleaning and
an audit
and rooting out.
Audit.
So
Because
election 2020 is obviously going to be different than any other election we've had. How do you see that affecting you and your campaign?
Actually, I think that it's actually helped me. I got 1,271 more votes in Manchester than Tony Pappas, who is somebody that so many people think she's a Democrat. She's nice person, well liked, and people were impressed by what I did. But once again, I'm going to say I don't think it's just a thing between me and Tony. Although my name was better known than the last candidate. Nobody ran against her in 2018. But there was a Democrat in 2016. But it looks like there's going to be a blue wave. And I benefited from that because people are voting Don ticket. That means Democrats. Mm-hmm. Democrats are taking, I think, 2/3 or more of the absentee ballots. Because, on the other side, Tony's handicapped. She's not a Trump supporter. She supported Bill Weld, which didn't exactly enamor her to many Trump-supporting Republicans. But she's handicapped by Republicans. To vote absentee ballot is like you're going against
sure. Mm-hmm.
Trump. So yeah. So
I feel like we've gotten to know you. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel is important that voters know about you before they head to the polls or send in their absentee ballot?
I think that what you should know is that I am a veteran. I'm a disabled veteran. And the one thing one thing that a veteran has to ask himself, particularly a disabled veteran, like me, I'm in pain every day. You ask yourself, is it worth it? Just saying that to you, I feel emotion. So many of us, because we talk about family. Veterans are part of my family. Even if you're a Trump supporting Republican, you're still part of my family. Sure. And the disabled community too. But there has to be meaning for what you're sacrificing. For people that died, who are still part of your life, they're part of our family too. The people that we lost, they're part of the things that we carry. If you remember the famous short story. And yeah, a good government is very important. When I saw, you have to step up to that line and take the oath to defend the Constitution. And, corruption, it's not just me. It's like Oliver Wendell Holmes, Cardozo, the great justices. Political corruption, I'm not saying, this isn't about Tony Pappas, but about other things I've seen here, it really undermines democracy. And the last thing I'd like to say is that we have a big problem here in North Hillsborough County, and it affects Bedford. It's the fact that Manchester's in chaos. The hub and spoke system's just been dismantled. The Nashua Stop Safe Station, and it stopped, closed its homeless shelters. It sends them to Manchester. That affects New Boston, affects Goffstown, which is not part of my district. It affects Bedford. I have seen this. I've lived in New York. My parents were divorced, Albany in the 1970s, and I've seen decay. And my stepmother was an executive at General Motors. I saw what happened up in Michigan. The decay, it is insidious and it happens very quickly. There are things that can be done. Nashua has traditionally gotten the bulk of the goodies here from the commission. They got the first drug court. It took so much. And, Ted Gatz has helped get finally a drug court for North Hillsborough. But a Supreme Court justice stepped in too. But when you read and research the things, Nashua gets a lot of the goods. And Manchester is handling the bulk of the problem of this state. I mean, people send them here. Hub and spoke system's been just falling apart. Didn't have any support from Governor Sununu. All the problems are here in Manchester. That affects Bedford. Bedford, my aunt lived in Bedford. For me, going to West High with the kids from Bedford was like Beverly Hills. That's what we aspired to live in Bedford. And it affects us. And we really need an advocate that really gets there and fights for not just Manchester, because if you fight for Manchester and trying to get the resources and trying to solve these problems, you're defending Bedford too, and New Boston, because I've seen how the suburbs get affected when a city decays.
Sure.
So we really have a fight set up for us.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. For those of you at home, you've just heard from John Chopra, is it?
John Claude Hopwood.
John Claude.
John
Claude Hopwood, who is running for Hillsborough County Commissioner. John, we wish you the best of luck. Now, before we say goodbye, I just want to remind our viewers that Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Polls will be open here in Bedford from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. at Bedford High School. Now, if you're a Bedford resident who will not be in town on November 3rd, or if you'd rather vote absentee this election, then you need to visit the Town of Bedford website at bedfordnh.org and download the absentee ballot request form. And once you've downloaded, printed, and completed the application, you can either mail it in or hand deliver it to the Bedford Town Clerk's office, which is located at 24 North Amherst Road here in Bedford. You can also fax the application, if any of you still have a fax machine, to 603-472-4573, or you can scan and email it to townclerk@bedfordnh.org. So folks, please make sure that you sign the application before submitting it to the town clerk, because any incomplete applications will be rejected, which means that your vote will not be counted, okay? So it's important to sign those. If you have any questions about the absentee ballot process, you can contact the town clerk, my good friend Sally Keller, at 603-472-3550, extension 2. And with that, this has been the BCTV Candidates Corner, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Election Day.